Hi, this is Michael Wojcik with the Rochester City Council update for July 21st, 2014. Another fairly long meeting, got done at about 10:30 tonight, so here's a little bit about what happened. I'll start out on a positive note. One of the things that I'm really excited about, a trail, we are put out for bids a trail project along East Circle Drive. It's going to take kind of a cool route through some ravines and through Quarry Hill, but it's going to go all the way from around Century High School down through a couple parks, through Quarry Hill, and actually out to RCTC. So this is kind of a major connection in the city of Rochester on the east side that's been missing, and we put that out for bids. So the process has begun. Really excited for that. Um, One thing in my ward that I did do is there's some new properties along 23rd, some kind of leftovers from other parts that needed to be that were just recently rezoned, and we did have an approved contract, but the packet referenced the contract. The contract wasn't in the packet, and due to a surgery today, quite frankly, there was nobody at the meeting that could tell me what was in the contract. And I am very cognizant in this area of making sure we handle pedestrian facilities and stormwater correctly for those people who suffer from some of the floods down the hill. So we did just table that. I don't anticipate any trouble. I just wanted to actually verify what that contract said before we went ahead with it. Third, Ashland Village. This is the one that was, essentially tabled last time and the hearing was reopened, but project went forward. The land use change, the zoning change, and the general development plan all went forward unanimous 7-0 votes, which is what it should have been because this was actually a fairly easy decision. Um, you know, the neighbors, I thought they handled themselves much better, and there was a correction that, in fact, none of the realtors that were mentioned last time actually said anything against the project, hurting property values or bringing in crime. Um, I was pretty ticked last time. There were some comments about we don't want those people coming up and using our park. Those people bring crime with them. They'll hurt our property values. Some stuff that's patently false, but oftentimes gets said. And I understand that that might be the neighbors' concerns. It's just not true, and it's never been true. Um, so it was a little bit of this time. I felt there was a little bit of throwing spaghetti up against the wall. We saw some studies with completely unrelated concrete facilities and health concerns with that. The buffering was a big issue. What it came down to is there's a number of examples where we have the same kind of adjacent zoning that we were looking at right here. It happens throughout our city. This is a good spot for affordable housing. It's reasonably transit oriented as well as we can do in our community. It's pretty good site plan for it, walking distance to a number of jobs, and there is no such thing as a perfect site. You can kill yourself trying to look for a perfect site, but here we have a piece of foreclosed land that potentially can house 49 working families and benefit their lives in a positive way. Now, when we do these projects, most people who come forward speak against the project, but who's absent are the voices of the 49 people who stand to, or families that stand to benefit from a project like this. I do think it's going to be a really good project. I don't think it's going to hurt the neighborhood in any way, and I think it's going to be very positive in the lives of 49 people. Um, and I do think that after the project is up, and I've seen this time and time again, the neighbors will come around and realize that it wasn't that bad, and it actually is a pretty good project, and I hope that continues to be the case here. Um, you know, uh, Joe Weiss does a lot more working with neighborhoods, quite frankly, when I first got on the council, and I think he's going to deliver a pretty good project right here. And I hope when everything's said and done, we can look back and say, "Yep, this was clearly the right decision." And most of the time, we've been able to do that. Um, Ultimately, this was pretty frequently compared to Cascade Creek, which is a wonderful project and faced far more challenges than this particular site did. Although that one did have a little bit better location. Um, I think what most of you are watching this are probably interested in is the aggressive panhandling ordinance, or what we actually passed tonight. I would actually not refer to as aggressive panhandling, but rather criminalizing polite panhandling ordinance. Really, really disappointed. Apparently the Chamber of Commerce and the Convention and Visitors Bureau took a position of supporting the exact language that was there, and frankly, I think we're going to get sued over it. I think we're going to lose, and I think it probably be justified if we do lose. And I think there's three reasons why this is not dealing with aggressive behavior, but goes far beyond that and limits a constitutionally protected free speech activity. The three things I think it does wrong is it's just clearly too broad. It doesn't. The things that are prohibited should be more narrowly defined, and this is just such a broad brush that's painted with that it's going to cover a lot of activities which nobody would really find to be aggressive panhandling, but they're going to be prohibited anyways. And I think the second thing with that is that, very specifically, I've given this example before, and it still bothers me that, you're sitting at a sidewalk cafe, somebody comes up, may I please have $1? You say no, and then they say, thank you, have a nice day. Well, they've just committed the crime of aggressive panhandling in the city of Rochester. But wait, it gets worse under this ordinance. Now, this probably isn't going to happen, but this can happen. If it doesn't happen, it's only out of the kindness of law enforcement or the kindness of the criminal justice system. However, somebody who has just committed that atrocious violation of our laws and is guilty of the crime of aggressive panhandling is actually charged with a misdemeanor. What does this mean? This person, could be downtrodden, could be somebody playing the system. We don't know, but potentially they could be faced with trying to get the employment. And that little box that says "check here if you've been convicted of a crime in the last 7 years." They can now potentially check that box. Maybe it gets expunged. Maybe the charges are never brought. I certainly hope charges would never be brought in a case like that. However, that's actually what the ordinance I passed says. So you take a perfectly polite, rational interaction. Keep in mind, this is taking place in a publicly owned area, a public sidewalk. And we're taking that perfectly rational, sane, calm, non-threatening action, and we're potentially criminalizing it. And the fact that the Chamber and the Convention and Visitors Bureau would support that version of the ordinance, I'm really disappointed that they go so far as to criminalize those people. I think that's absolutely wrong, and I think that these three, at a minimum, these three changes need to be made. In the end, it passed 5-2 with Sandra Means also voting against it, and the mayor was okay. Mayor Brady did express that he was okay with, potentially criminalizing that very same interaction that I told you about. So I was a little bit disappointed in that as well. And I think ultimately the only assurance we have here is that if this thing gets litigated, we're going to lose a whole bunch of money. We had 2 police officers that came and testified. Both were pretty strongly against it, although one of them was doing it in her individual capacity. And this was supposed to be a public hearing to take input, but then when all the input was pretty much negative, then we went ahead and passed it anyways. And we had organizations like the Human Rights Commission that had waited to weigh in until they saw a final version. We never even gave them a chance to respond to the final version because as soon as the thing closed, it was like, well, we're just going to pass this right now. So I don't think this was a true public hearing in the spirit of it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we don't get sued. I hope we don't criminalize people and disenfranchise them from potentially finding employment. But this ordinance does potentially do that. Lastly, something that was not controversial at all was the fact that we did pass an ordinance that says nobody can just be sitting around in the median of a traffic island. Sidewalks, sides, no problem. And I kind of understand how this could be potentially dangerous. And this does not pick on panhandlers per se. It just says nobody can be there. Now, I also brought up the point that, well, I don't want MnDOT anymore setting up signal light timing so that you push the cycle one time and you can get to the middle, and then you have to wait, 90 seconds or 2 minutes to push the button to get the rest of the way across. So, because that is now considered unsafe in the city of Rochester. So, MnDOT, please don't do that to us. So those were some things that I thought were interesting in this particular meeting. Again, big picture, great new trail coming, possibly 49 more units of affordable housing desperately needed in the city of Rochester, a relatively uncontroversial street median. The criminalizing polite panhandling thing is kind of a real bummer to me, and I think it's wrong. And lastly, the quote from Sandra before I left, she goes over to me and says, sometimes you really make me angry, but most of the time I just love you being around. So I got a kick out of that. That's Sandra at her finest. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a, catch you next time.